of VLOGMAS. Let's get ready and chat for the day. So at the end of the day yesterday, I picked Movement with David, or Movement by David, the Stay Flexy guy. And I took a little peek on his YouTube page. He has a few like follow along workouts, stretching routines, I guess, that we're gonna do today. I will say I went on his website to see what he's all about. He sells like a supplement for your joints, but I also noticed that he had a few free ebooks. So I put them in my cart and I checked out and I got a confirmation email, and then the ebooks never arrived. So I'm gonna take a look again, like maybe I just didn't notice or didn't see it, or maybe they were in the confirmation email. I don't know, I thought I looked pretty hard though. I know I had said yesterday that if someone doesn't have like a ton of free content or like updated content, I wouldn't make a video about them, but we've made it this far. He also has like over 2 million subscribers. And I did just get a certification that talks about like stretching and mobility, FRC, if you are wondering. So I'm gonna stick with this because I actually wanna see like what, I don't know, like what his approach is compared to what I've learned and what I'm starting to implement. As expected, I am a teensy bit sore from yesterday. And I know the first like response to that is usually, oh my gosh, that means that that works, or that workout works. But we need to define what works means, right? Quite often in situations like that, people are like, oh my gosh, my legs are sore, so that means that I burned fat from my legs. Not how it works. I made a whole video about what it means to be sore, how often you should be sore, all of that, so you can check that out if you want. But long story short, I'm sore because I don't do Pilates. So this is basically a new stimulus on my body. We have to remember that the body adapts to stress over time, but I have not had this particular stress on my body in quite a bit because I haven't done Pilates in a bit. Just because I'm sore today doesn't mean that this workout is better than anything else. It simply means that I did something new. So I'm glad that we can squash that. So it's 7:11 right now. At 8 o'clock, I am teaching a strength training class. Then I have 2 virtual clients. I have to film some mobility workouts today for a new program that's gonna be in the Fit Club. Then we're gonna do our Stay Flexy Movement by David workout. I have to edit class from this morning, and then we're gonna go to the gym, which depending on what I pick tomorrow might be a mistake. I think I'm just nervous that I'm like not gonna be able to use my gym membership at all, and I've been really consistent over the last 4 weeks with my strength training. So I just wanna go in and like do whatever my heart desires and kind of like fill that void. We'll talk more about what I'm thinking later. After that, I have to do laundry. I actually don't even know what I'm gonna be wearing today, so that's good. And then I have a virtual client at 6:15. All right, let's get set up for class and I will see you in a bit.
It's the end of the year. Everywhere on TV, couples and Christmas trees, gift wrapping and cheer. Just the worst time to be with someone special.
He's filmed 5 workouts. Oh, I just filmed 5 workouts. This is 2. They were just like 10-minute mobility things, which actually fits in lovely with our review of the day. I'm gonna jump into these routines. I will say that David doesn't have a ton of like follow along longer workouts, so I'm gonna do 3 to get like a vibe of him. I've never heard of him before, so I wanna make sure before I like form an opinion, I try a number of things that he offers and hear a little bit more about his like approach to flexibility, stretching, all of that kind of stuff. So I'll pop up on the screen the 3 that I'm trying today. The thing that I'm the most intrigued about is his whole brand is like stay flexible, right? So I wanna hear how he talks about strength with flexibility, which is kind of just mobility. So I'm really intrigued to hear his approach, especially because I am like fresh out of learning all of these different new mobility techniques. So let's see and let's do it. It's very cold out. This is my first time this season with the big puffer. We're going to the gym for 2 reasons. Number 1, I just want to get out of the house and get some steps in. Number 2, I'm a little afraid that I'm not going to touch weights for a while or like machines. And I decided I'm going to just go in and do a quick machine focused upper body day, something that I could not do at home. So I'm thinking like seated rows, some chest press with the bar, maybe some lat pull downs, depending how my shoulder feels. I just want to like get my upper body real good. Now there is part of me that is terrified I'm going to pull like Caroline Gervin out of the bowl tomorrow, but I can always just pick a lower body day, and I would rather base an opinion and make a video off of a lower body day than an upper body day. I just think there's like more meat to dive into in terms of the programming. So anyway, we're going to go to the gym. I'll show you what I do. When we get back home, we're going to do some laundry and we're going to talk about today's workout. Okay, let's chat about the workouts. I have a lot of thoughts, so let's just start at the beginning with, is this science-backed? If you look at the thumbnail, the titles, the description boxes, there's nothing clickbaity, there are no wild claims being made, so really this is just like, hey, do you want to stretch for 10 minutes? Let's do it. So like, does the movement support the claim that is being made, which is stretching? Absolutely. But let's like dive a little bit deeper. David talked a lot during the routine, which I really enjoyed, which we'll talk about later in my enjoyment part. But the reason I enjoyed it is because it gave me a really good insight into his philosophy when it comes to stretching, flexibility, mobility, all of the above. He had a really good why for everything we were doing, whether it was, hey, we're gonna stretch your hip flexors because a lot of people's are tight because we sit a lot during the day, all the way to like, hey, we're gonna stretch the hamstrings because I really enjoy it. And that's a great reason to stretch. There's nothing wrong with that. So I want to give you quickly like my philosophy on stretching, flexibility, mobility. We're going to kind of put that all under a similar umbrella right now for the sake of this video. Like I said earlier, I recently got a mobility type certification, and I want to kind of take that knowledge that I learned and apply it to this. Personally, with my current education and experience level, I firmly believe that you only need as much flexibility as you need. Meaning, does everybody need a front split? No. But if you're a dancer, if you're a gymnast, if you're a martial artist, you probably do need a front split. As long as your current range of motion through a joint does not cause you pain, it's not a huge deal. That's a very blanket general statement. We're going to tease that apart a little bit more. So another distinction I want to make really quickly before we jump into David's philosophy is that while mobility and flexibility are different, there is a lot of overlap, and a lot of the generalization I see online, I've made this generalization before in the past too, is that mobility equals movement and flexibility equals static or no movement. And that's not always true. Again, we're going to tease that apart a little bit, but I want to jump into David's first video where I think I got one of the best senses of his philosophy around stretching and flexibility and mobility. So let's jump into that. I thought he had a really nice mix of active and passive stretching. That first split hold, it shook me to my core. It was a great example of an active static stretch. We're holding up our body weight using the quad, the hip flexor, the glutes, the core, and building strength in that range of motion, aka mobility. So even though we were static, we weren't moving, it was still active. And then we had some moments just relaxing into stretches, which is passive, aka flexibility. Passive stretching is not bad by any means. I use it in tandem with mobility training a lot, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in just a minute. But if we're thinking about like one of the big purposes of passive stretching in terms of the way that I view it is that it really helps to calm the nervous system. It's not necessarily like lengthening your muscles. It's not necessarily getting out adhesions or anything like that. It's really just giving your body a chance to say, hey, this is a safe range of motion.
we can chill into it. Now, based off of at least that first workout that I did with David, it seems like we have very similar approaches to our movement in terms of passive and active stretching. What I'll typically do is get people into a passive stretch for about 2 minutes. Most of the research we have shows that that's the amount of time that it takes for the nervous system to kind of calm, let your body know that it's safe. And then I'm going to work in 2 different contractions. I'm going to use muscles to try and get us out of the movement, and then I'm going to use muscles to try and get us into the movement deeper. I want to point that out because David's approach is kind of inverse to mine. His approach in that video was more of, okay, we're going to make this hold really active to get the muscles warm, and then we're going to sit into the stretch. That's not a bad approach either. I think that we just have two different whys or 2 different approaches there. We're going to leave it at that, but we seem to have very overlaying approaches. Was that English? Now, let's fast forward and talk about the second workout, which was the strength one, because I actually did have a few kind of red flags pop up. So this video talks specifically about how to get into a sissy squat and a Nordic curl. And while he did give a few mobility drills to add in, like ankle dorsiflexion, most of the advice was just kind of like practice it with a modification until you can do it. I'm definitely simplifying that, and that's also not bad advice, but let me break that down. Let's say you're trying to get that sissy squat, right? And you start with like the highest amount of pillows, and you keep going and going and going until you can finally get to the floor. And for some people, maybe it is just a pure strength thing, and maybe it is just a range of motion that you need to practice. But for other people, there might be a limiting factor either in the ankle, the toes, the knees, the hips that aren't letting you get into that full sissy squat. For example, a lot of people lack big toe extension or pulling the big toe up. A lot of that is because we're shoved in shoes that are way too narrow and have way too much arch support. So it takes all of the work of actually having to push off of the big toe. And honestly, if you don't use it, you will lose it. If we're thinking about a sissy squat, you have to get into maximal big toe extension. So if someone doesn't have that, but you're telling your body over and over, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this movement, well, it's going to put that work somewhere else, whether it's your ankle, whether it's your knee, whether it's your hips. And over time, it absolutely can lead to injury. Same exact thing with a Nordic curl. If someone does not have enough knee flexion, so that position where you start sitting on your knees, you might put that load into another joint. You also just might be torquing the knee in a way that it can't go, but you keep telling your body, I have to do this movement. So this is where we kind of, I don't want to say disagree, because again, this is a 14-minute free video online. Like, we're not getting the big picture. But instead of going, I'm going to get this movement pattern and then giving modifications until you can actually do the full thing, my approach is more, okay, I want to do this movement pattern. Let's make sure the joint mobility is there to support it. And if it's not, we're going to take a modification and work on our joint health at the same time. So I don't necessarily think that like David's wrong in anything that he's saying. I think it's just incomplete. But again, it's a free video that was put up a year ago. Who knows what he thinks now? So to give this a score, if we're talking science-backed, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Let's talk about my enjoyment. I am so surprised. I love these. I went in so skeptical. I feel like a lot of me is like, ooh, I just got this certification. It's really respected. I want to see what this guy knows. He knows a lot. I also just love learning, and I loved hearing him coach us and cue us along the way. Everything was really well informed. I even just loved hearing like what he enjoys. I learned that he loves stretching his hamstrings. I was like, me too, David. I love that. I just think that having a really passionate coach coaching you in real time is so undervalued and so important. David is obviously super knowledgeable. I had a really good time just doing some challenging poses with him, learning a little bit more about him, learning his knowledge, and I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 for enjoyment. All right, ET's time. That was supposed to be Lion King. This is dramatic. Oh, Shaun T's Dig Deeper. Who put Beachbody in here? We're not going to make the same mistake as today, because even though today worked out fine, if I had known that David had so little free content online, I would have chose someone else. All right, here it is. We got a free workout on here. So we're doing Shaun T, from Beachbody. I guess we can talk a little bit more about why Beachbody is a disgusting company tomorrow. Thank you for coming. I hate whoever put this in there. It's going to be brutal. I will see you tomorrow.